Hi, folks. I wanted to welcome all of you to another Nocode Ops event. And today we are hosting Jesse, co-founder of Triggre, for an interview and a product demo in building a SaaS application in 30 minutes using their no-code platform. For those of you who are new here, hi, I'm Shaf, and I run the community at Nocode Ops. For some of you who have been following our content for a while, welcome back. You've just tuned into one of our weekly live events. Today's event is going to be a two-part session where we would first have an interview with Jesse to learn more about him, his background, and how Triggre came to be. And the next half would be a personalized product demo led by Jesse himself. Without further ado, I'd love to start this conversation off by having Jesse introduce himself. Hi, Jesse. How are you doing again today?
Yeah, I'm still doing fine, yeah, we've been chatting for a while now, obviously before the start. Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm looking forward actually to showing everyone some things about Triggre.
I'd love for you to kind of like tell us more about yourself and your background.
Yeah, sure. So my background is in software engineering. I studied that, and I started my first company at 19 while still in uni. Because I figured it would be nicer to build software and sort of put what I learned into practice than work at the local supermarket. That was pretty much it. And I soon found out that it was a lot sort of harder to build software in the real world than it was sort of like making little projects and things, but actually making it for your customers that can actually use it. And along the years, I've started another two companies, so Triggre's one, and with my current business partner, another company, which was more in the exam world. So people register for exams online and they do them sort of online, not the actual exam, but all the prerequisites and stuff like that. And during those years, we actually really found that it's really not a lot of fun having to discuss all these intricacies of programming with customers. And that's where the idea from Triggre came about, actually. Yeah. So that's a little bit about my background. It's been a while since then.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Yeah, you're right. It's better to start a startup at 19 rather than like working at your local grocery store for sure. But that is such a wonderful achievement to be 19 and already, having this background of like starting an idea for a company, which is amazing to hear. And it's also great to hear that you have also, been a serial co-founder or a serial founder for
Yeah.
several other companies, which is quite impressive for a one person to do. So props on you for that. Definitely an impressive person and interesting background there. Um, but the next question I have for you is along the lines of like, what do you want to kind of like hope to accomplish with Triggre as of right now, especially in the no code world?
Yeah. So I'll to best explain it, I think, is to talk a little bit about a case that we had. So my previous company, we were doing these projects like software development projects with a team,
Mm-hmm.
and there was this case where we actually had outsourcing back then in Eastern Europe, so that's like lower wage but high quality developers versus
Mm-hmm.
what we're used to here in Western Europe. And this case was a really good case. It was a simple one where it was again for the exam software, but basically a sister company of them was an insurance company, and they just wanted to have this insurance checkbox that says, look, if I have this insurance, then if I am too late with my cancellation, I get back all my money, because otherwise I would have to pay for in full if they didn't do it before, like, I don't know, 2 weeks or something. So super simple. And we said, look, just send an email, do an inbox, and have the checkbox on, and that's it. And then after 6 months of testing it, we'll simply look at if it's worth it, and then we'll further build it. And they were like, no, we should do it immediately, completely. So we're like, okay, well, we'd prefer to do it quickly and like test it first, but okay, here's the complete proposal. and they thought it was too expensive. And we were like, it's such a waste of a good business idea, that that you have this really good idea that you can simply, like, it doesn't look like it's that hard, right? And yet it fails. That was sort of where our frustration comes from, and we decided that that we want to really help entrepreneurs and smaller businesses like that to be able to do these things. Because if you are a large company with a lot of budget, you can easily build these things. You have some money to hire a team, and you can make it all
Right.
like easily. Well, easily it costs money, but you have access to it. Where small, medium businesses around the world just don't have that luxury. So that's the people that we really want to help.
You're right. The small people, the small businesses are the ones that technically need the most help because they don't necessarily have enough resources to kind of like build something for themselves.
Yeah.
Like you said again, it might be too expensive for them. It might be too time consuming for them, energy consuming. So that's so great to hear that Triggre is a company that kind of like, facilitates all these resources for small businesses. I love to hear that. My next question would be around what are some of the differentiators of using Triggre as opposed to other no-code
Yeah.
platforms out there that is well known to build a SaaS application similar to yours as well?
Yeah. So I would say that, first of all, like many other tools out there, Triggre is not for everything, right? And this is how we always started it. Like, you can't build a tool that abstracts away from coding, and then it can do the same things like coding, because that is just not what you want. So we chose really to build a complete application. So what that means is Triggre is a no-code platform. There's literally no code. There's no hidden backdoor or whatever to build some code into it. It's really no code. It's database, it's processing, it's reporting, it's your user interface. It's all these things. It's connections with other systems, all built into one platform. And the simplicity at which you can build this is what really sets it apart. So normally you'd use like maybe 3 platforms to connect them together. And because we have this all into one platform, that simplicity is one of the main differentiators. And the other one is that it scales. Give you an example. We have a customer, NCR, who uses Triggre for their warehouses around the world. So they use it here in the Netherlands, they use it in the US, in Atlanta. They use it in Romania and in Hong Kong. And this is just one application, and they do all of their parcels go through it. And what they do is they calculate what is the best way, the cheapest way to ship them, calculating it for 40 or so carriers every single time with the package, which saves them a lot of money on their shipping costs. So that's an idea of how it scales, and that just runs like for a couple of years now.
No, that's awesome to hear. Oh my goodness. No, so I went through your website and I kind of like looked around, and there are so many different templates that people can kind of like, start off with as well. So that's like a really great starting point for people who don't necessarily know no code, and don't necessarily know the drag and drop kind of like functionality. It's great that, Triggre provides these templates for, complete beginners. So that's amazing. I'm sure we'll be talking more about that later. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing all the things that you've shared so far. I'd love for us to kind of like get started on the demo and for you to kind of like work through what you have in store for us. The stage is yours.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. So this is an application that I've already prepared, but we're going to rebuild it. But I just wanted to show you something simple that we're going to be building in a second, and then we're going to add something to it, actually. So basically, it's a really simple setup for a SaaS tool. And I've just chosen this super simple case where we have tasks in the system. So we have like doing a webinar, some secret tasks that I'm actually not supposed to see because this belongs to another company. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to build a application or a screen in this application where people can only see the tasks that belong to the company that they work for. Because that's usually like the base setup of a SaaS application, is that you have to have some mechanism in which this works. And I'll show you how easy that is. But just to show that this application actually works, so we have some users, it's me and other user. We have companies, we have Nocode ops. Nocode Buddies is one of our partners, and Pragmatic is another one of our partners. So I've just added some of the companies there. And so we have those tasks. So the webinar, it's still new, so I'll edit it, really simple, and I'll set it to in progress because we're actually doing the webinar right now. It's done and it's edited. But what we actually want in a SaaS application is that I would only see this task because the other one would belong to another company and other users. So this is what we're going to build, and I will build this really quickly in the Triggre Designer. So this is the Triggre Designer. And the first thing that I will do to make sure that it's actually empty is I will load a empty design. So there's nothing in there. So we're going to do this from scratch just because we can. In Triggre, what you do is first in design, you have data, which is the data that you want to store in your application. You have flow parts, which are reusable process blocks. And those flow parts you can use in what's called automation flows. These are like background processes, batches, if you're old school like I am. User flows, which is like a combination of workflows and processes, user interface, and processes, workflows. And appearance is just your menu structure. So there's nothing in here and nothing in these things yet either. And in data, we only have user. So what we're going to do is we're going to start here. So user is just really simple, built in. And we're going to start by adding a company that people can store. So we'll call it a company. And we'll give company a name so that you can store a name with a company. And what you see is that Triggre works quite different than other tools. I would say, because we use a lot of these wizards, which filter out a lot of unnecessary options. So it only shows you the options that are actually usable, and that makes it a lot easier to use. Now, we want to link the user and the company so that a user belongs to a company. So we do that by adding a reference here, and we'll do that to a user, right? So we'll say, I don't know, employees or something. And then Triggre says, okay, so you have a company. Can it have one user? No, a single company can have more user. And then we say a user can have one company. Let's set it up like this. And you see that it actually sets it up like this. If I would choose this, you can see that it sort of shows you what it will be like. So we're going to do this. And then it says that we also want to name it on the other end, which is handy. We'll call it company for user. Or actually, let's call it employer. And now you see that there's a line between user and employees, which is a list of users, right, in the company. And a user, you have an employer, which is a company there. So this is the basic setup that you want for most SaaS applications. Now, maybe it's not a company, maybe it's just per user, but with one level in between is usually the harder setup. So we're going to use this. And let's add something like tasks, like I just showed you. So a task. And for a task, we'll add, let's say, a description. And we'll also add a status, which we call a pick list, and then we can add some statuses like new, working on it, and done. Something like this. Like this. There we go. Status. And again, we want to now link the task to a company, right? So we know that any task belongs to the company, so that we can filter basically later on showing only those companies. So we'll set that up. Use a reference again from task to company. We say belongs to. So task belongs to a company. Can only have one company. But a company can have multiple tasks, right? Because it would be weird if you only have one task per company. So I'm going to call it tasks. And the same thing happens. So now we see that a task belongs to a company, and the company has a list of tasks. So this is how you set up the data, basically, for a multi-tenant application. Now, obviously, you can go a lot further than this, but in this demo, this is what I'll do. And now the interesting thing here, just to quickly show you, is that Triggre actually creates a lot of these processes already for you that you often use, such as to create a new company in your database, or to create a new task, or to update a task and stuff like that. So it already creates those for you that you can then later reuse. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to make some of those user flows. Now, remember that that's a combination of a user interface and a workflows. Is basically like a workflow with processes and screens. And you'll see how easy it is to make one. So I'm going to start again, click this plus. We'll use the wizard for now. And there's a bunch of ones that you can easily make. So different sort of workflows here, different wizards that you can go through. We'll use this one to make a simple create, update, and delete screen for company. We'll just have just a name of the company. We'll want to add, edit, and delete companies. We can sort it by name, for example, smallest to largest, A to Z. And we'll call this all companies. And this is what Triggre does. It has now got this user flow called all companies. And if we open this, you'll see what I mean by making it a workflow. So basically what this means is that if a user goes here, they follow the arrows. So they go from start, and the first thing that they see is the company overview page. And then from that page, they can click, for example, add, and they'll come onto this add company page. From there, if they click done, the company is created from what they fill in on the form fields on this page, and they return to the company overview. Now, this is a very simple one. You can make like decisions in here, a lot of complex flows. I'll show you a really complex one that we actually use in our platform ourselves after this demo is done. But this is how it works. These pages, you can edit them, you can change them if you want to. But for now, we won't do that. So I'll quickly make another two for the tasks. Let's see, this is fine. Yep. Here we go. It doesn't actually matter much. All tasks. And I also need a list of users. So I'll make some user management. We don't need this. We don't need this. We just need that. Okay, so now that we have those user flows set up, what did I do here? Okay, yeah. I'll remove this because it doesn't have the email. That's fine. So you can just, as you can see, you can very easily edit this as well. So what we'll do is we'll add it to the menu, these things, and then we have the basic setup of that application done. So we'll create a menu. Let's call it webinar, and then we'll add here something like admin or something just to show you that this is what it looks like. All companies, you add here, you add those user flows. So this is basically the basics of how this application will work. And the basic setup that we just saw is now done. So what I'll do is I'll actually publish this quickly. I have a lot of environments here because, as you can see, I give a lot of demos. So I'll use this one. And what Triggre now does, and this might actually also set it apart from other platforms. So this is why I saved this, and it didn't answer your question in full before. So I was a little bit maybe sneaky, but Triggre actually builds software from your design. So it actually creates, in this case, it creates C# code, creates an actual database. It's a SQL server for those that want to know what it is. So it actually creates that, and that is also what makes it so scalable. So it actually builds your like real software like a programmer would, and compiles that and installs it in our cloud. So that's a technical way to say that it's really fast in terms of like how the application performs, to keep it really short. But there are different ways to do that. So basically that's what it does. And this takes, like, depending on your design, like if you have a larger design, it takes a little bit longer because it needs to program. Now, I won't say I was the best programmer ever, But I could not program this fast, let me say that. Neither can the best one that I know, and install it in a cloud server as well. So it's been published, and I will just switch back to this tab. And if I refresh it, this might take a second because it's just installed. We won't have any tasks anymore, but the users will still be there because Triggre has that built in, so the users will remain. But as you can see, we no longer have any companies, we no longer have any tasks. We do have the users, but they no longer have an employer because I've removed everything basically by starting afresh. So let's start by adding a company again. We'll have Nocode Ops. That's not nice. Come on. You know better. Done. And we have that Nocode Ops there. And if we then take my user and we edit my user, we can say that I work for Nocode Ops. Let's assume that I just am linked to them. And we can have the other user either have no company, or let's make another one. Let's say that this company, they work for Triggre or something. And we'll have this user basically work for Triggre. So this is basically how that very quickly works, and how you can make an application that actually already, for like registration purposes, this is like, what's it been, 10 minutes maybe, with me explaining everything. But now we can add tasks. So let's quickly add a task. A webinar, right? So we have one task, belongs to Nocode Ops, status is new, done. And we'll add another one that we shouldn't want to see, my secret task. And that's a triggered one, that's also new. There we go. Okay, so now we have the data set up in our application, where we have a webinar tasks that we want to see if I'm logged in and I'm linked to Nocode Ops, but we don't want to see the secret task. So that is what we want to do. So let's set that up. So we're going to go again to user flows. And what we're going to do is we're going to add let's say my tasks or my company tasks page. But that's not something that the wizard does for us. So we're going to go a little bit advanced, and we're going to start with an empty user flow. So we're going to make this process ourselves. Really simple. We're going to start here, and we're just going to add a page. So just a page. My tasks, right? This is what the page does. And one thing also that we have here is, as you can see, is that this color is red because something is off. So as you can see, if you're ever here and you think like, oh, you know what, I'll just publish this because I don't care. And Triggre will tell you that you can't publish because you have something that it cannot build into software. So then obviously the next question is, well, where is that mistake that I've made? Well, you can just follow the red dots and you'll find wherever it is that your mistake is. And you see this, and it will just show you that the page is empty. So you have to add something. So it's really simple to also, if you do something which does not sort of is not complete yet, it will just tell you. So in this page, what we're going to do, we want to show only the tasks that belong to my company, right? I'll just use a simple table on the page. And what we can do is normally you can say like, look, I want data from my database directly, but we have also got this really powerful feature which says like, hey, data from the user flow. Now, what that means is that all of those processes that you see, like the user flow, the workflow, the data that you sort of accumulate as a user, you go through that flow by visiting a page or filling in a form, you can use that on different pages. So that makes it really easy to design. So we're going to use that right here, and it will show you what you have. So right now, since it's just an empty one, we only have the current user. But if I expand this, you see that the current user is linked to an employer, as we have made in the data, and that employer actually has tasks. So this is only those tasks that are linked to that employer. So it's really simple to just show these. And then from the task, we want to show description, the status, and well, the company we don't need to because it's my company that it's linked to already. So I can really quickly build something that is multi-tenant. This is fine. Just add this like this. And now let's call this my company's tasks. Add this to the menu, and that will actually already be what you need to set up a multi-tenant base for an application. Go. And we'll publish this again. So that took me about 6 minutes to build that, apparently, the time says. So what you see is that if you set up your data in this really simple way and then filtering it sort of is really easy. Now you can use more advanced ways to filter that, but setting up a multi-tenant system, which is again the basis for a SaaS application, is super easy this way. So to give you an example, like I said, and then we'll look at how we've built that in a moment. Our own platform has a self-service portal. It runs on my.triggre.com, and that's all built in Triggre. So I will show you something from there, which obviously if you log in, you don't see my application and I don't see yours, Shaf, just so you know that that's all good. And that's built in a similar way. So we have a lot of filtering there on different levels because we also have partners who can manage other applications and stuff like that. But first, we'll quickly show you this application has been updated. So I have to refresh it again for a second. And what we'll see is that we'll have on the side here a new menu with My Company Tasks. And it should only show my tasks, which it does. And if I were to change my company, now obviously I have access to everything, so I can fiddle around with this. But let's say that I go here and I say, you know what, I'm now part of Triggre, and I go here, it will actually show you only the tasks that belongs to my company. So this is really the quickest way that you can set up a fully multi-tenant structure for applications to start with. Now, as promised, something a little bit tougher is this is the My Triggre application where you have a lot of options. I obviously have, as you can see, test stuff and everything. But you have this My Subscriptions that I'm going to show you. So if we go here, you get a list of your subscriptions. Now, I only have one in this account. I can click that and I can upgrade or downgrade. And what it will do is, let's say that I want to do this. This is a free account, by the way. If I do that, it says like, oh, you know what? Invoicing information is needed because we don't have all the info that we need in order to start invoicing you. Now, how did we make that? That might be interesting, right? So, where did I have that? Okay, so this is another Triggre Designer loaded. As you can see, this is the all the things for the My Triggre application. And what we do here is this is a little bit more complicated. So I'll walk you through a little bit of the beginning. So basically, we have a super user thing, which is something for us to make sure that we're not logged in with the wrong account. We do some things here, but at some point you can say if you have some active subscriptions, right? So we go here, and you'll see that we come here to the main page, My Subscriptions. This is what you saw. This is a little list of the subscriptions, and I only have one. So it'll show you that one. And I clicked the upgrade, downgrade button here. And then it says, hey, do you need more information for this person's invoice address? And how we check that is there's this rule that says, well, if the city is empty, or the country is empty, or the house number is empty, or etc. And this is how we do that. So you see that you can build very advanced workflows and let's say also processes in the backend, because the automatic processes work in the same similar simple way, but can be really advanced. On top of that little basis that we just created in, what was it, like 20 minutes or so, to really create a really powerful automated system that is completely custom to your processes. So that's basically how it works.
That's amazing. Also, to those out there watching, please don't be alarmed by how complex this current view is. It's just a matter of you kind of like understanding the workflow and kind of like building off of what you already know. So once you kind of like build on for your application, that it will make sense. This for
Yep.
you right now would probably wouldn't make sense because this is not your application and you don't really understand the back end of things. Be alarmed, but super, super cool for you to be sharing that actually. That completely like caught me off guard because when you said complex, I didn't really realize how complex it was gonna be until I saw that, but like that was insane. But
Yeah,
no, this
that's
is all
usually
amazing.
like it's really interesting to see. Like it looks really simple, and then you're like your
Right.
brain is super easy. Like it goes like, okay, it looks simple, so it can do simple things, right? This is
Right.
how we're
Yeah.
wired, but it doesn't work like that actually. So with those simple building blocks, you can actually make very
Mhm.
powerful systems. And for the people that are joining this webinar, to give them a really small example of the impact that you can make as a small company. We recently had a testimonial by Bob, and he automated his business. So he built a CRM system, a customer
Mhm.
portal, and a proposal, like just a pricing proposal, a tool. And he did that all in 2 weeks himself. He has a company with 20 people. So then and then he actually franchised his business, built a whole franchise portal in Triggre, grew his company with 100% in 6 months. He now has 45 people. And he did all that, and it saves him about 60,000 euros per year, he said, just by using our software instead of 3 or 4 other tools that he would otherwise need to use. So, like coming back to why we started Triggre, for us, that's like one of the most perfect cases because
Mhm.
having that's like one full-time employee saved. So and I think that everyone here knows if you have like one extra employee, like hands to actually do work that computers can't take over, that is a major step in your business. Like that is so much more work that can be done. So that's really cool. So that's the kind of thing that you do with Triggre. Yeah.
No, 100%. Good job, Bob. Good job,
Yeah.
Bob.
Yeah. Oh, Bob is amazing.
No,
Yeah.
that's amazing to hear, like from one application, and then he kind of like built off of that, and then built another application, and then kind of like franchise the business in general.
Exactly.
And
And
then,
that's multi-tenant, right? Because
exactly.
obviously one franchise may not see the stuff from the other franchise.
Yeah.
So he built first his own system, and then on top of that, he built the rest indeed. So he really
Hmm.
evolved his system step by step, which is something that Triggre lends itself really well to. Yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure. One thing I'm also a big fan of Triggre is the way that the workflow is kind of like set up. With other no-code platforms, it's usually the backend is usually a table.
Yeah.
But this one, it's kind of like a workflow. You can actually visualize things more clearly as compared to like
Yeah.
than you can on tables, right? So that is something that I am really, really a big fan of. So to those out there who's watching this, would love to know your thoughts or if you have any questions on that end. But yeah, this was definitely a fantastic session, and everything was done without the talking. I think everything could have been done less than 30 minutes, to be quite honest with you. But
Yeah.
throughout the whole session, I think we were at 30 minutes, which is amazing because like I was looking at the time and we started at 1:05 and then we stopped at like 1:35. So that was exactly 30 minutes. So we actually um came up with the promise that we had, initially said when we wanted to accomplish this event. In 30 minutes, you can build a SaaS application. So yeah, props to you, Jesse, for making that happen for everyone, which is
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, we do have a question from, this is Paul from YouTube ask, is there a
Yeah.
limit of users a Triggre app can have?
No, there's no limit, so you can have as many users as you want, and pricing also. And this might be important. Pricing is
Mhm.
not per user, but per action. So
I
you can
see.
imagine yourself having a small application with many users, providing a certain value per user, which is low, because if a user doesn't use it that much, then paying like 10 or 15 or $20 per month for a user is a little bit overkill. Whereas, for example, as I said, like a big application that does a lot of automation and you only have like 2 or 3 users, then adding one user is worth a lot more because they do a lot more with the system. So we charge on what you actually use in the system. And the pricing is really low. So you can build a pretty large system already starting at like $50 per month. So yeah, so there's no limit on that. And we want people to keep expanding their system without worrying about, oh, I have to add another user, is going to cost me another or 3. I expanded my team, it's going to cost me a lot of money per month. That's not what we want. We want people to work with the software, and if it works for them, they use it more, so then it's good, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. So it kind of like still runs clear with your mission in helping out small businesses. And this is exactly perfect for that, because now you're giving them resources that is, perfect for their budget per se. So that's great to hear. And we also have a question from Run the World, from Bridget, actually. She asks, what if we wanted to add a feature of choosing a type for each task and wanted to allow each company to determine their own task types? Then their employees could only choose from their company's task types. How would you do something like that in Triggre? This is a good question.
Yeah, so what you can do is you can just build a data item that is a task type. So like this task type, for example. So you would make this. Now I'm not going to completely build it because we don't have time. But you would say, like, look, this is a reference, right? So it has tasks like this, and then one task type can have more than one task, but one task can only have one type. So this is how you would set that up. Done. And then you'd link from the company, you'd link the task types, right? So you'd say like task types, and you say you can. Let's say that they can have multiple, just because like that's I think what you said in your comment, Bridget. So I'm trying to really quickly do it the way that you want to. And a task type can even belong to maybe to multiple companies, because maybe that's how you want to set it up. And then you say like this, and in this case, what you would do is you would probably remove the tasks here directly so that you do it through the task type, right? Now what you see is I'm allowed, this is nice to see, I'm allowed to remove this, but obviously this will destroy what I've just built for you in 30 minutes. So I would have to adjust these pages. But this is how you would basically set that up. So I hope that sort of answers your question. And again, you could now filter. So on this one, we can actually quickly show it. So you use, again, data from the user flow. You'd say like, okay, employer has task types, and there's tasks underneath it, right? And then you click and you say like, well, I want to have these two. And that's it. And then it works like this. You just have to also make a screen where the company could select which task types that they would want to see. So that's how you do that.
Well, hopefully, Bridget, that answers your question. If you have any further questions, please do
we
let
got
us
it.
know.
Thanks. So I'm thinking to answer the question. Yeah, it's. I do it quickly, but maybe people can rewatch it if they want to see.
Yeah, for sure.
Or ask
No,
us,
definitely.
because we're always willing to help out.
Of course. And we also have Anne from Twitter asking, can your application be wrapped to native apps?
No, we don't. We don't build native apps, and the main reason is that so we don't have a wrapper yet. We focus mostly now on like business to business and internal tools, so like customer portals, supplier portals, that sort of thing. And right now, for us, that's not worth the effort. We do want to build a wrapper application basically for native apps in the future, but this is not something that I can give a date on. For those native apps, I would definitely use a different platform than Triggre. If it's okay to be a web application, it works on your mobile. It automatically, it's responsive. It scales to your phone screen. So that's not the issue. It's just that we don't build native applications for mobile devices now.
That's good to know.
Yep.
Well, Anne from Twitter, we hope that we answered your question there. But I have a few questions up my sleeve as well. It might not be as technical as some of these questions are, but I'd love to kind of know what are some of the interesting use cases that you've seen people use Triggre for. I know you've already mentioned the Bob scenario, but I'd love to kind of hear more, so that everyone in the audience as well can know more.
You're just shaking the tree to see what I've got, isn't it? Okay. I get it. It's okay. So what we've done, you've mentioned them before, I think the templates. So many of the cases that we've seen, we've adopted them a little bit to our templates. Let me actually show you. So we
this
have
was
a
good segue to looking up the templates, I feel.
Yeah. But what we do is so we have a lot of cases that obviously we don't share. Like if a customer has an application, we're not going to give that to someone else because it's their IP. So these are things that either we have seen in the past or we've developed with people, and they're like, look, and we ask if we can give a general version of it. So we have all these cases that we've either built based on what we saw, sort of like which is useful, like a business-to-business customer portal, right? That's a really good one that a lot of people actually use. This one is one of the most popular, the Captain Customer. We have the approval systems are also very important, very popular, and this one specifically is invoice and budget approval. But you can do like lots of other things. If you just load the template, you can just change it from being an invoice to something else. So these are really good ones, and the logistics ones are also. Oh well, okay, bye. See ya. Someone has to go. And another one is like really in logistics. It's for example, the follow photo is for event follow up, and that one's interesting. And Peter Plan is another one that's really interesting. So Peter Plan is basically one of those which I talked about NCR with how you can do like package planning. That is basically the resource planning. That's what's in here. And you can, if you load that template and you look it up, I think we might even have it already on YouTube. You can actually load it and you can automate some of the steps in here that in real world applications, those are automated, but for the template, we have them manual. So you can actually follow them around and see how they work. So that's how you could do that. So if you are looking for good cases, this is definitely the way to go. And I would suggest that people start actually with the template finder here, because it's really simple. You just use these like 6 questions. I have like no experience. I need something for my customers, solving the problem that I have, repetitive manual work. My coworkers in finance will be over the moon. Having things automated, especially since we currently still use pen and paper, right? And I will say, like, look, Sunny Supplier is the one that you want to look at. Check that out. And more that are sort of similar are these that are less relevant, but you can also take a look at these. So I would definitely suggest people start here if they want to see like which kind of use cases there are. And you can load them just from the dashboard of the Triggre Designer. So you can see here, you just scroll through all of them and just like load them. You just click load template, you load it, and that's it. So it's like super easy to do.
I love how your website has a lot of personality, and I love all your templates also has an avatar on its own, which is super, super cute, to be quite honest with you, because you don't see many companies doing that and actually, using that as the main purpose to kind of elevate the personality of your site itself. So that's amazing. And that little kind of like 6 questions really help people to kind of like figure out the types of different templates or the exact one that they would need as well. So that's really, really helpful.
Yeah, exactly. It can be very like, because these platforms, right? You can use them for so many things. Then the question sometimes it becomes like, hey, is my thing in there or something similar? And this makes it a little bit easier to find. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of like streamlines everyone's thought process as well. Instead of like seeing all these new shiny templates, they can
Yeah.
actually focus on one single one by answering these six
Yeah.
questions. Because I'm guilty of like, the shiny object syndrome as well. If I
Yeah.
see a new template, obviously I'm gonna play around with it, but does it really solve my problem now? Right.
Yeah.
So this is good for that.
Yeah. Shiny object syndrome also it abbreviates to SOS. I'm not sure if it's a sign, but if it is, I'm just saying it's SOS.
I actually hadn't thought of that before. So yes, to everyone out there, shiny object syndrome is also a
Yeah.
sign of distress. So
Yeah.
if you that's really funny. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
No,
But
but for us, it is really about like solving business problems. We really want to help businesses
sure.
grow and
Right.
have them build custom software that helps their business improve. So that's why, yeah, we focus on these like business value questions.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. I think my last question is like kind of like around collaboration. So I know you mentioned that like the pricing itself is not per user but per action, kind of like done within the platform itself. But how does collaboration work with multiple people on a team? And do they have their own? Do they basically need to create their own, accounts, or yeah, how does that work?
So what you can do is you can definitely so you can work together on applications
Hmm.
if they have their own account, free account. So just like our login system, we call it Triggre ID. But if you have a login, that's all you need. So you just create a free account, and then you can actually invite other people into your application if you have a commercial account. So for the starter accounts or free accounts, we don't do that. But for the commercial accounts, you can work on them with multiple people. And you can use the self-service platform, the MyTrigger. If you go to sign in here, you can actually just set that in your application. You can invite people even. So even if someone doesn't have an account yet, you can just invite them and they can help you out. And they can log into your designer as well, and they can help you out. You can work at the same time if you want to. Now, what we see is that sort of like at the same time is usually not done that often. But we do see, for example, our slightly larger customers, what they do is sometimes they don't even have the time. So this is why we also have partners, and they have a partner help them. And then the partner
Hmm.
does some of the questions about like, okay, so what do you want to build? How do you want to build it? And because the whole department is involved in actually making the application, and like also design some of the screens and some of the flows, you get a lot of sort of acceptance within the team to make a big change in the company, because it's partly their thing and they can actually have direct influence on how the application works. So that's a really good part of how that works. So yes, that's definitely possible.
That sounds great. I think those are all my questions, but would love to know where people could reach you or follow you to learn more about Triggre, or if they're interested in booking a demo or just want to basically learn more in general.
Yeah. So if you are wondering if it's something for you, we have free Q&As right here. Just schedule that. It's really simple. It's just a Calendly thing that will just open up. It's a session with one of our people. You can ask anything. Like they will give you a demo. You can say like, look, I want to do this. We'll definitely tell you. If you say like, look, I want the new shiny website, we'll go like, look, not with Triggre. Triggers for internal tools. Maybe look at something like Webflow. Like we're really open about that. We don't want to like get you on board if it's not going to be a success.
Hmm.
We'll give you a demo. Check out if your case is possible. If you have that question, so that's fine. You can also start for free. People can follow me. You can reach me on Twitter. That's probably the easiest, or on LinkedIn. That's also I'm easy to find. I think my name is I think shared with 3 people in the world, so it shouldn't be that hard to find me. Yeah, so feel free to follow me and or reach out.
That sounds amazing. Thank you so much. Well, folks, I think if there are no more questions for us at this time, I think that is all we have for today. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and hopefully you've had an insightful session and took something out of this to help you think about building your next business SaaS application. Until next time, have a great rest of the week. Bye, everyone.